Welcome to 10 Minutes a Day, a daily reading of the Catholic Church's social encyclicals. Today we continue with Quadragesimo Anno, written by Pope Pius XI in 1931.
If the members of the body social are, as was said, reconstituted, and if the directing principle of economic social life is restored, it will be possible to say, in a certain sense, even of this body what the Apostle says of the mystical body of Christ. The whole body, being closely joined and knit together through every joint of the system, according to the functioning in due measure of each single part, derives its increase to the building up of itself in love. Recently, as all know, there has been inaugurated a special system of syndicates and corporations of the various callings. In view of the theme of this encyclical, it would seem necessary to describe briefly and comment upon appropriately. The civil authority itself constitutes the syndicate as a juridical personality in such a manner as to confer on it simultaneously a certain monopoly privilege, since only such a syndicate, when thus approved, can maintain the rights, according to the type of syndicate, of workers or employers, and since it alone can arrange for the placement of labor and conclude so termed labor agreements. Anyone is free to join a syndicate or not, and only within these limits can this kind of syndicate be called free. For syndical dues and special assessments are exacted of absolutely all members of every specified calling or profession, whether they are workers or employers. Likewise, all are bound by labor agreements made by the legally recognized syndicate. Nevertheless, it has been officially stated that this legally recognized syndicate does not prevent the existence, without legal status, however, of other associations made up of persons following the same calling. The associations, or corporations, are composed of delegates from the two syndicates, that is, of workers and employers, respectively of the same industry or profession, and, as true and proper organs and institutions of the state, they direct the syndicates and coordinate their activities in matters of common interest towards one and the same end. Strikes and lockouts are forbidden. If the parties cannot settle their dispute, public authority intervenes. Anyone who gives even slight attention to the matter will easily see what are the obvious advantages in the system we have thus summarily described. The various classes work together peacefully. Socialist organizations and their activities are repressed, and a special magistry exercises a governing authority. Yet, lest we neglect anything in the matter of such great importance, and that all points treated may be properly connected with the more general principles which we mentioned above, and with those we intend shortly to add, we are compelled to say that our certain knowledge there are not wanting some who fear that the state, instead of confining itself as it ought to the furnishing of necessary and adequate assistance, is substituting itself for free activity, that the new syndical and corporative order savors too much of the involved and political system of administration, and that, in spite of those more general advantages mentioned above, which are of course fully admitted, it rather serves particular political ends than leads to the reconstruction and promotion of a better social order. To achieve this latter lofty aim, and in particular to promote the common good truly and permanently, we hold it as first and above everything wholly necessary that God bless it, and secondly, that all men of good will work with united effort toward that end. We are further convinced, as a necessary consequence, that this end will be attained the more certainly the larger the number of those ready to contribute toward it their technical, occupational, and social knowledge and experience. And also, what is more important, the greater the contribution made thereto of Catholic principles and their application, not indeed by Catholic action, which excludes strictly syndical or political activities from its scope, but those sons of ours whom Catholic action imbues with Catholic principles and trains for carrying on an apostolate under the leadership and teaching guidance of the Church, of that Church which in this field also that we have described, as in every other field where moral questions are involved and discussed, can never forget or neglect through indifference its divinely imposed mandate to be vigilant and to teach. What we have taught about the reconstruction and perfection of social order can surely in no wise be brought to realization without reform of morality. The very record of history clearly shows. For there was a social order once, which, although indeed not perfect or in all respects ideal, nevertheless met a certain measure and the requirements of right reason, considering the conditions and needs of the time. If that order has long since perished, that surely did not happen because the order could not have accommodated itself to changed conditions and needs by development and by a certain expansion, but rather because men, hardened by too much love of self, refused to open the order to the increasing masses as they should have done, or because, deceived by the allurement of false freedom and other errors, they became impatient of every authority and sought to reject every form of control. There remains to us, after again calling to judgment the economic system now in force and its most bitter accuser, socialism, and passing explicit and just sentence upon them, to search out more thoroughly the root of these many evils, and to point out that the first and most necessary remedy is the reform of morals. Important indeed have the changes been which both the economic system and socialism have undergone since Leo XIII's time. That, in the first place, the whole aspect of economic life is vastly altered is plain to all. You know, venerable brethren and beloved children, that the encyclical of our predecessor of happy memory had in view chiefly that economic system wherein, generally, some provide capital, while others provide labor for a joint economic activity. And in a happy phrase he described it thus: neither capital can do without labor, nor labor without capital. With all his energy, Leo XIII sought to adjust this economic system according to the norms of right order. Hence, it is evident that this system is not to be condemned in itself, and surely it is not of its own nature vicious. But it does violate right order when capital hires workers, that is, the non-owning working class, with a view to, and under such terms, that it directs business and even the whole economic system according to its own will and advantage, scorning the human dignity of the workers, the social character of economic activity, and social justice itself, and the common good. Even today, this is not, it is true, the only economic system in force everywhere, for there is another system also, which still embraces a huge mass of humanity, significant in numbers and importance, as for example agriculture, wherein the greater portion of mankind honorably and honestly procures its livelihood. This group, too, is being crushed with hardships and with difficulties, to which our predecessor devotes attention in several places in his encyclical, and which we ourselves have touched upon more than once in our present letter. But with the diffusion of modern industry throughout the whole world, the capitalist economic regime has spread everywhere to such a degree, particularly since the publication of Leo XIII's encyclical, that it has invaded and pervaded the economic and social life of even those outside its orbit, and is unquestionably impressing on it its advantages, disadvantages, and vices, and, in a sense, is giving it its own shape and form. Accordingly, when directing our special attention to the changes which the capitalist economic system has undergone since Leo's time, we have in mind the good not only of those who dwell in regions given over to capital and industry, but all mankind. In the first place, it is obvious that not only is wealth concentrated in our times, but an immense power and despotic economic dictatorship is consolidated in the hands of a few, who are often not owners, but are only the trustees and managing directors of invested funds which they administer according to their own arbitrary will and pleasure. This dictatorship is being most forcibly exercised by those who, since they hold the money and completely control it, control credit also, and the lending of money. Hence they regulate the flow, so to speak, of the lifeblood whereby the economic system lives, and have so firmly in their grasp the soul, as it were, of economic life, that none can breathe against their will.